Today we're taking 50 of our favorite indie game characters and pitting them against each other in the Squid Game.
Welcome to the Squid Game. We're excited for everyone to play.
Today's roster of contestants is as follows. Shovel Knight, Black Knight, Plague Knight, Spectre Knight, Sans, Asgore, Papyrus, Undyne, Mediton, Omori, Kel, Hero, Aubrey, Noel, Bergley, Lancer, Jevel, Isaac, Boyfriend, Hornet, The Radiance, Ori, Battleline, Peppino, Spaghetti, Freddy Fazbear, The Beheaded, Abigail, William Afton, Mustache Girl, DJ Grooves, The Conductor, Zagreus, Hades, Steve, Firth, Cuphead, King Dice, Cadence, Meat Boy, Gomez, Monica, Fall Guy, Lamball, Grisbolt, The Lamb, Jimmy, Anya, Quote, The Doctor, Gustav.
The following are the ground rules in this Squid Game. Number 1, no outside allies or sidekicks. 2, no outside weapons, with the sole exception of any equipment needed to survive. Number 3, no magic. 4, natural abilities are allowed. The first game is red light, green light. You may move forward when it shouts green light, stop when it shouts red light. If your movement is detected afterwards, you will be eliminated.
Speed, composure, and general athletic ability will be your best friends in this round. So with that, let's get to the characters who passed with flying colors. Most of the heroes in this competition have what it takes to survive, like Shovel Knight, Black Knight, and Sans. But if you watched our original video game Heroes Squid Game, you might remember that Peppino wasn't so lucky. While he is fast and strong, he's also prone to panicking under pressure, and that would likely result in him getting knocked out in the first round, at least if he hadn't already been here. In one level, Peppino manages to stealthily evade several abandoned animatronic mascots, implying that he's able to move carefully when he's aware of the need to do so. We're rooting for you, Peppino, not that it'll take much to do better than you did last time. Speaking of animatronics, Freddy Fazbear is safe for now as well. For a robot possessed by the spirit of a child, he's surprisingly stealthy and level-headed, able to show patience in waiting for the right moment to strike his enemies. Quote is in an even better position since he's a robot soldier, meaning he has more strength and endurance than an average human and much less exhaustion to worry about. Even regular people have a decent shot in this round, despite not being as strong as some of the other mascots we're talking about today. Steve is fast enough to outrun gigantic spiders, zombies, and skeletons. Monica is said to be an impressive athlete, and Anya, honestly, compared to all the absolute hell she dealt with throughout her game, this would be a cinch, even if she'd definitely be feeling the pressure. Unfortunately, not everyone would win this round. The first loser of the game is Fall Guy.
Player eliminated. Ironically,
the guy whose game is probably the closest to Squid Game in terms of gameplay is the least fit for it. If you've played Fall Guys, I probably don't need to spend too much time explaining why. These guys have the momentum and balance of drunken toddlers. The moment someone bumped into them, they'd either be too unstable to stay still during the red lights, or move nowhere near fast enough during the green lights. The next one to fall is DJ Grooves.
Player eliminated.
Sorry to all you DJ Grooves fans out there, darlings, but the reason this legend loses right here is in his name. No matter what is going on around him, DJ Grooves never stops grooving. Even during the final boss, when the conductor is literally telling him that they have to kill each other in order to give Hat Kid the power to win, Grooves just keeps on dancing silently. The penguin is dedicated, we'll give him that, but this game just wasn't the place for a star like him. Another fairly obvious elimination is Isaac, who quite literally cannot stop crying. I mean, I don't blame him, but it's not exactly the best strategy for surviving a game that involves motion sensors.
Player, you have been eliminated.
And for the last elimination of the first round, we have Jevel.
Player eliminated.
Yes, Jevel can do anything, but standing still definitely doesn't seem to be one of the things he prefers doing.
46 out of 50 players remain. Let's move on to the next game, Honeycomb. Players must cut out the shape from their cookies. Those who break their cookie or run out of time will be eliminated.
Patience, steady hands, and artistic skills will come in handy here, as will general resourcefulness and creativity. The first winner who comes to mind is the character who pleasantly surprised us all at the last Nintendo Direct, Hornet. Hornet may be small, but she's well known for her skill with the needle and thread, launching precise attacks from a distance and... Hornet! I swear, if you say "Shaw" one more time, I'm disqualifying you myself. Thank you. Anyway, Hornet's precision aim and speed with the needle indicates that she'll do pretty well in this round. Anyway, pretty much any character who has skills with a sharp weapon is in a good position here. Omori, Undyne, Zagreus, the Lamb, Spectre Knight, and the Conductor come to mind. While some are more even-tempered than others, they all showcase some level of precision skill with their weapons, and know when it's time to take things seriously. King Dice's boss fight shows that he's able to precisely control his hands to attack Cuphead and Mugman, so he's another strong contender in this round. I doubt that he got to be the devil's right-hand man without some above-average sleight of hand. Freddy Fazbear is a slightly more surprising winner since he's more known for brute strength and jump scares, but he is capable of sabotaging cameras and phone calls, so we have every reason to believe that he could handle this game. Weaponry isn't the only valuable skill here though. Peppino once again thrives due to his cooking skills, and the Doctor, Anya, and Plague Knight each have medical skills that will come in handy. Also safe are characters in high-stakes roles like Gustav and, unfortunately, Jimmy. God, I can't wait until we can say that Jimmy is dead. One character we feel much more positive about is Lancer. He's a creative kid, and while he might not fully understand the game, he seems like the type of guy who would win by sheer dumb luck. And while Birdley isn't quite as smart as he pretends to be, his skill at video games and general creativity show us that he'd do pretty well in this round. Anyone who could commission such a beautiful statue definitely has what it takes to go far in this round. The same can be said for Cadence's musical talents. Playing guitar takes strong, dexterous fingers, so we think she's in a good position for this game. Both of our Palworld reps, Grisbolt and Lamball, pass this round too, since they have skill in the handiwork section. I assume carefully cutting a cookie into a specific shape while being held at gunpoint would count as handiwork, right? I'm really not sure what else it would count as. Finally, since we included Krill from Another Crab's Treasure last time, we decided to throw Firth into the mix here, since if there's any character both greedy and dumb enough to be okay with the Squid Game, it's him. As short-sighted as Firth is, he's also even-tempered and charismatic. Even if he couldn't handle the game itself, he'd probably just ask someone else for help in exchange for a share of the prize money later on. Madeline is a much less lucky doppelganger though. She's literally the embodiment of all Madeline's negative emotions, and while Madeline learns to control them better throughout the game, Madeline probably wouldn't be too even-tempered on her own. She'd either panic and break down, or panic and break some bones. Either way, this is where her luck runs out.
Player, you have been eliminated.
But honestly, I think she's the only one who loses this round. Everyone else is either absurdly lucky or absurdly skilled, so with that...
45 players remain. It's time for our next game, Six-Legged Pentathlon. The rules are as follows. Players will split up into groups of 5, tie their legs together, and move in tandem around a track. Every 10 meters, one player will play a mini-game until it is completed, with each member playing once. The goal is to complete all games in the allotted time, repeating each one until it is complete.
So here are the mini-games. Dak G, throw a paper tile at the ground to flip over another paper tile. Flying Stone, throw a small stone at another small stone and knock it down. Gong Gi, a traditional game of Korean jacks. Spinning top. Jeggy, kick a jeggy in the air 5 times in a row, kinda like hacky sack. Balance, composure, and most importantly, general gaming prowess are the most important characteristics for this game. That is, for those popular enough to find a team in the first place, this will be the point of the game where alliances and teams start to be formed. Shovel Knight and Black Knight may be rivals, but they can work together when the situation demands for it. Plus, Black Knight would never pass up an opportunity to one-up Shovel Knight. He'd also never succeed at one, but still, he's trying. Plague Knight and Spectre Knight have also worked together, and with this being a matter of life or death, they'd probably have no issue teaming up with each other here. Of course, some characters would have others fighting to team up with them. With immense strength and leadership skills, Hades could easily persuade others to join him. Since he worked for the literal devil, King Dice almost certainly has the charisma to get in good with him, and villains like the Doctor and William Afton would surely be willing to team up with him as well. Finally, we have to give points to the characters whose claim to fame is charisma. Cuphead, Monica, and Hero are all charming enough to secure themselves a team, and their athletics/gaming skills would make them valuable assets. Since Hero's safe, we can assume the same can be said for Omori, Kel, and Aubrey too. Not everyone was so lucky, though. You might notice there are a few more characters on the smaller side. The Radiance may be a god in the world of Hollow Nest, but to the others, she's just a moth with a huge ego. Of course, we're sure the one guy naive enough to team up with her would be Firth.
Player eliminated.
And despite both of them assuring their partners that they'd do great in the minigames, they'd have absolutely no idea what they were doing. This would also spell the doom of the even more tiny Gomez and the rather unsettling Beheaded and Meat Boy. In the nicest way possible, while both of them are skilled, their general appearances and mannerisms would make them pretty off-putting, leaving them as the last ones picked for the team, so to speak. You may be wondering about some of the other tiny characters, and if so, don't worry about them. Ori is cute enough to team up with some strong players with soft hearts, like Black Knight, who we know is a soft spot for animals. Hornet would also be wise enough to team up with some of the bigger players. We're sure Kel would be willing to team up with a cool sword-fighting Bug, but let's get back to the unlucky ones. The Conductor has his fair share of skills, but also has an extremely short fuse. He'd either yell at his teammates and distract them if they took too long, or he'd end up freaking out himself. Peppino would have a similar struggle, since these games require a bit more precision than just tackling a sentient golf ball, and like the Conductor, he has a pretty short temper. Unfortunately, those two's incompatibility would contribute to the loss of their teammates, Lancer, Birdley, and Noel. We hate to see all the Deltarune characters fall so early on, but the fact is that these three are kids, and with the exception of Lancer, who again doesn't really get the severity of what's going on, they would probably be completely freaked out by now. Hopefully for them, this is just a dark fountain situation and they'll wake up believing it was all a dream, but in any case.
35 players remain. Our next game is Mingle. Here are the rules. Players will stand on a rotating platform in the center of a large circular room. At any given moment, a number will be called out, at which point players have 30 seconds to get into groups of said number and secure a room for themselves. Any player who does not find a room with the correct number of players will be eliminated.
On top of speed, composure, and observational skills, the best traits to have in this round are determination and sheer ruthlessness. Loyalty might also help, but that depends on who you're loyal to. Zagreus, by all accounts, is a pretty decent guy, especially when you remember that he's literally a demon. While he certainly has the strength to push others out of his way if he needs to, he wouldn't do it unless it was necessary. The same can be said for Cuphead and Cadence, who are both well-meaning and ridiculously strong. But with all the powerful characters left in the running, it's inevitable that there are some unlucky incidents in this game. First and foremost, poor Hornet.
Player eliminated.
I was really rooting for her to go far, but considering all of her fighting skills and determination, I guess it was pretty easy to forget that she's a bug and would probably end up getting stomped on by accident at some point. I guess it can't be helped. Similarly, Mustache Girl doesn't have stolen time powers to depend on here, so being a regular kid, she'd be helpless in the face of monsters like Jimmy and the Doctor. Boyfriend is pretty durable for a regular human, but he's still nowhere near strong enough to secure a win against the absolute powerhouses left in the running. The same can be said for Plague Knight.
Player, you have been eliminated.
Who's not anywhere near as powerful without his bombs, and he's tricky enough that the rest of the characters would be hesitant to trust him. Next to go is King Dice, who made the mistake of trusting Hades.
Player eliminated.
Hades' game iteration was one of his less evil appearances. He has disdain for particularly evil criminals, specifically those who hurt innocent kids, so the moment he found out that King Dice planned to sabotage some of the younger competitors, like Cuphead, he'd be willing to cast him aside. The Doctor was more than willing to cooperate with Hades' plan to betray King Dice, but little did he know that he was only meant to be the next one on the chopping block. Perhaps an even more satisfying elimination is that of William Afton.
Player eliminated.
Who we can only assume would be body checked by Freddy just before entering a room, and that'd be if he was lucky enough to lose before Hades got to him. Oh yeah, Freddy's safe, by the way. He's definitely one of the strongest characters in the running, and his thirst for revenge on Afton would be the perfect motivation to win this round. But now let's talk about some of the more honorable eliminations. Gustav is down for the count because he's a soldier who's willing to lay down his life for the good of others. The same can be said for Undine, who goes above and beyond to protect the monsters in the underground. There's no way she'd be willing to let Sans or Papyrus die when she could protect them. On a similar note, Asgore is definitely strong enough to win this round, but after all his years of the whole killing 7 children plan, he definitely wouldn't want any more blood on his hands. If you know anything about Shovel Knight, it should be clear that he'd be willing to die for the sake of his friends, like Black Knight.
Player, you have been eliminated.
But the thing about Black Knight is that he cares deeply for Shield Knight, and he knows that Shovel Knight is the most important person in the world to her. We think he'd take this one last opportunity to show off and buy his old frenemy time to save himself and get back to his beloved. Lamball is a relatively small animal-adjacent creature compared to most of the others, so it might not fully understand what's going on, and compared to bigger players like Freddy or Grisbolt, it wouldn't be able to fend for itself too well. Ori is also pretty simple-minded and just way too pure-hearted to ever sabotage someone else for the sake of saving himself. Hero is basically the embodiment of a pure good older brother figure, and he'd do anything to ensure his friends survived, even if it meant pushing himself out of the running.
Player eliminated.
Unfortunately, when that infamous 2 popped up, someone else would have to separate from the group, and while we won't spoil the game's plot for anyone who hasn't played it, Omori's remorse and despair would make him the most willing of the bunch to die for his buddies.
Player eliminated.
Plus, Aubrey and Kel would be too busy arguing over who got to sacrifice themselves to actually do it. And the last elimination of this round is Jimmy.
Player eliminated.
Good freaking riddance. Anya was fully willing to sacrifice herself to make sure he couldn't hurt anyone else, but in a shocking twist of events, Freddy Fazbear decided to body check Jimmy as well. I guess we all learned a valuable lesson today. If you're a remorseless rapist like Jimmy, Freddy Fazbear will ensure your death. That's good times, good lesson, I like that. We've just about reached the halfway point, which means it's time to recap the surviving contestants. Shovel Knight, Spectre Knight, Sans, Papyrus, Metaton, Kel, Aubrey, Freddy Fazbear, Abigail, Zagreus, Hades, Steve, Cuphead, Cadence, Monica, Grisbolt, The Lamb, Anya, quote.
19 players remain. Congratulations to everyone who made it this far. Now it's time for everyone to get some rest. Lights out.
They will not, in fact, be getting some rest. In this season, players are able to vote on whether or not they want to continue the games after each round, wearing a patch that confirms which side each of them is on. Tensions are high, alliances are straining, and people are this close to snapping, so it's time for a good old-fashioned brawl. Since this is an unofficial bonus round, anything goes, so some of you guys might want to hide. Man, the last round was absolutely vicious, wasn't it? Anyone worth their salt is going to be on on guard. Bigger players like Freddy Fazbear, Mettaton, and Grisbolt are probably safe on the basis that they're too big and or durable for most players to want to attack. Sans and Papyrus would be watching each other's backs, as would Kel and Aubrey. They're probably the two physically strongest members of their friend group, and they'd be more than willing to beat up anyone who tried to come near them. Shovel Knight would undoubtedly be doing his best to protect the more vulnerable players, especially those like Kel and Aubrey, who are straight up kids. Unfortunately, without a sight, Spectre Knight is a decaying corpse.
Player eliminated.
While he probably wouldn't start any fights, he wouldn't be able to finish them as well as he normally can, at least. The frustration of sleepless nights would probably cause one of Hades and Agrias's numerous fights.
Player eliminated.
And given how often Agrias has kicked his old man's butt, we have no reason to doubt his ability to succeed here in that endeavor. And while most of the remaining characters wouldn't be too eager to start any fights, the strife between these two powerhouses would definitely catch a few others in the crossfire. Abigail made it pretty far, but she's the least remarkable of the human players left in the running.
Player eliminated.
We think Monica would be more observant and Anya would have more experience with hiding. Steve's stomach would be rumbling a lot by now, and if you've played Minecraft before, you know that means he could only take a few more hits before he's down for the count. Finally, Cuphead is physically one of the more fragile competitors left at this point.
Player eliminated.
And he's by far one of the least careful, since he's the same kid who carelessly gambled his soul away to the devil.
Good morning, players. After last night's brawl, 14 players remain. It's time for the next game, Marbles. You will play the game of your choice with your partner. The player to take all 10 marbles wins. The loser will be eliminated.
You'll need smarts, skills, deception, or some mix of all three to win this game, so without further ado, let's get to the matchups. Shovel Knight versus Zagreus. Zagreus is a friendly guy in general, and could probably work with just about anyone if the need came up. Shovel Knight, on the other hand, is just pure unadulterated kindness and chivalry. Once the nature of the game was revealed, Shovel Knight would prefer to die with honor rather than let a relatively innocent person die in his place.
Player eliminated.
As good-natured as Zagreus is, he wouldn't turn that down. Sans versus Papyrus. Wow, this round is brutal. Sans is a lot smarter than Papyrus, which I know isn't saying much, but would he really be willing to screw over his brother if his life was on the line? And then as naive as Papyrus is, he definitely wouldn't be willing to screw over Sans. This is just a brutal game in general, but we could see Sans pitching a game like the one Sebyok and Ji-young played in Season 1. A fair match either of them could easily win. One that would allow Sans to surprise his bro by losing on purpose.
Player, you have been eliminated.
Kel versus Aubrey. These two are near lifelong friends, so we think they'd prefer to play a fair game so neither would feel guilt over killing the other. Of the two, Kel has the more level head, so we think this is where Aubrey is eliminated. Man, poor Kel. Anya versus Monica. This is a weird one since while Monica was practically a god in her world, outside of the realm of a video game, we don't have any reason to believe she could cheat her way to victory. Anya is less level-headed, sure, but she also wouldn't be working on a completely different plane of existence that she's used to. So it's time for Monica to get deleted from the roster. Grisbolt versus the Lamb. The Grisbolt is basically an intelligent animal, which honestly it's kind of shocking you made it this far. The Lamb probably has more sleight of hand, but Grisbolt wouldn't necessarily understand the rules of a more complex game, so they'd probably just play something simple. While I would imagine that Grisbolt's stronger, the Lamb would have more precision and tricks up his sleeve, so it looks like Grisbolt's down for the count.
Player eliminated.
Cadence versus Mettaton. Once again, it's going to be a fair match since both of these two have some of their moral fibers still intact. That said, Cadence would rightly be on guard against Mettaton, and as daring as she is, she's less likely to overestimate herself. Mettaton had a fabulous run, but this is where those beautiful legs stop running. Quote versus Freddy Fazbear. Freddy ate him. Not even maliciously or anything, it's just, I don't know, it seemed like the easiest way to win the game.
Player, you have been eliminated. Only 7 players remain. It's time to move on to our penultimate game, Glass Stepping Stones. In this game, players will select numbers that determine the order in which they play.
The game is to cross a bridge made of 2 rows of glass tiles. One type will break, the other will not. Unfortunately for those who pick low numbers, they'll basically be cannon fodder. Having a big ego would be your downfall in this game, since going first makes you less of a competitor and more of a test monkey to see which tiles are safe. Real quick, let's see who's still standing for the moment. Zagreus, Papyrus, Kel, Anya, the Lamb, Cadence, Freddy Fazbear. Okay. Man, I hate to say it like this, but Kel and Papyrus are just way too positive to overthink which jersey to pick. Papyrus would go for number 1 right off the bat, and Kel would just grab whichever one was closest.
Player, you have been eliminated.
As another one of the youngest players left, Cadence is down for the count too.
Player eliminated.
Since she's daring enough to figure she can win no matter what number she picks, on the bright side, knowing how her adventure started, she'd probably survive the fall from the bridge. That leaves Anya, the Lamb, Freddy, and Zagreus. Most of the gang would be pretty careful by this point, but Zagreus is the one to most likely still have a bit of overconfidence.
Player eliminated.
Finally, while Anya made it a lot further than we expected her to, we don't think she's smarter than the 2 borderline gods left in the running.
Player eliminated. With that, we've reached our final 2. Congratulations to Freddy Fazbear Bear and the Lamb. It's now time for the final round. Prepare for Squid Game.
Rules! In this game, 2 teams or more often, 2 opponents must go up against one another with one acting as a defender and the other as an attacker, with the attacker doing everything they can to reach the top of the court or the squid's head and touch it with their foot, with the defender doing whatever they can to stop them, or at least that's how Squid Game is traditionally played. Here though, it's more of a battle to the death type of deal. Both of these 2 are fast, strong, and have plenty of blood on their hands. What's more, both of them are looking for vengeance on the people who killed them in their former lives. That said, while Freddy Fazbear has superhuman strength and endurance, the Lamb has the power of a straight-up godlike entity backing them up. They can teleport, use dark magic, and okay, let's just cut to the chase. The game is literally called Cult of the Lamb. This character's entire shtick is expanding a massive cult while slaughtering countless people. Freddy's only chance for survival is to pray, and I'm not sure a ghost-possessed animatronic bear can even do that, but who knows? In any case, the Lamb gets our sincerest congratulations for winning the Squid Game. Here's hoping they could run their organization a bit more sympathetically than the front man runs his.